The Pit Press Podcast.
Reinholz launches from downtown. No. Van Horn, no. And that's it. New Mexico with it.
Some big-time games and shots. How about this? Where have you been? MC knocking him down twice. Looking top and keeping it alive. House from knee. Got it. This kid is amazing. This is what got them in trouble. That ball screen giving up the mid-range. Look at this foul. House again. It's topping. Fifth assist.
And New Mexico's going to dribble out the clock. The Lobos three-peat as conference tournament champions Kendall Williams fires the ball into the air. But New Mexico wins it this afternoon 64-58 over San Diego State. And the Lobos claim the Mountain West Conference's automatic bid into the NCAA tournament.
Welcome back to another episode of the Glorious Pit Press Podcast. And my room doesn't, if you're watching on video on YouTube, my room doesn't look like a construction zone. And you know what I got rid of that I did for a while was Will Ferrell as Harry Carey. Hey! And I wanted to introduce the show back as that. I hope everybody's doing well. We're going to preview the Wyoming game, UNM men's basketball. And we'll also get into the top 25 ranking. They stay there. We'll get into all that, preview it, give some other news around basketball at UNM, not just men, but women. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the gang or the usual suspects, my business partner in this endeavor. And you know what? I don't even say, what year were you a Lobo fan since, Eric?
Since the day I was born, Ryan.
There you go. So 87, right?
Yeah, 86.
86. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the Lobo fan says 86. Mr. Eric Moulton, how are you doing, man?
I'm good. Good, guys. I think this is where the Lobos kind of get right and kind of get prepared for this upcoming road of whatever Ryan calls it, the
Gauntlet of death.
The gauntlet of death. So yeah, let's jump into it.
And he's been a Lobo fan since 1970, and he's the voice of the Western New Mexico Mustangs, Mr. Ed Nunez. How are you, sir?
Doing good, Ryan. I think Eric's right. It's a potential way for the Lobos to get right. But as we had talked to Mike Winters on Friday, the ex-Lobo, Wyoming's a tough place to play. So we'll see.
As we do this, I got to fix your your tag there. Voice of Western New Mexico and a Lobo fan since 70. Not that you can see that if you're listening on any of the podcast platforms. All the way from the Bay Area, which I'm sure is ecstatic right now. Mr. Rick Thompson, how are you, man?
I'm doing well, man. Bad storm out here. You might have seen they had to cancel the Pebble Beach golf tournament a day early, and they couldn't even play this morning. Lots of fallen trees around here and debris, but we're doing well and ready to chop it up about the Lobos here. People are excited about the Niners, though, so we'll see how that turns out as well.
I'm glad you are safe and sound. You can follow him at NM Sports Capper on Twitter. His name is Mr. Jacob Neff. I'm just going to cut right into it, Jake. I asked you what the line would be for the Lobos and the Cowboys on Tuesday night, and you said this was off the air, 11.5. You're usually spot on this stuff, man. Caesar Sportsbook has them -10, but how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Ready to talk about this game, break down a little bit of where we could take advantage of things, but I think the Lobos are going to definitely have to defend the 3 in this game. That's going to be the key aspect to this one.
And we'll get into all of that. Before we go any further, I want to thank some more of our sponsors that make this possible. If you're looking for a place to watch the Lobos when they are on the road, head over to Turquoise Desert Tap Room. It's only a few minutes away from Santa Ana Star Casino. Catch the Lobos, other college basketball right now, NBA, NHL. Stop by for food, drinks, and football. Turquoise Desert Tap Room also serves local brews on tap. Spring training is right around the corner. Find them on Facebook and Instagram. I sounded like a pervert saying that. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Turquoise Desert Tap Room and Abrazo Homes. It's a Lobo owned and Lobo operated, and a proud supporter of the University of New Mexico athletic department and its student athletes. Join the movement and help Abrazo Homes build momentum by contributing to the 505 Sports Venture Foundation or the UNM Lobo Club. When you buy an Abrazo home, you become a part of the Abrazo Familia. Looking to build the perfect home in New Mexico? Find them at abrazohomes.com. Some other news I wanted to get into as we try to expand this podcast and have it be more lively. Just some news around UNM land. New Mexico head coach Richard Pitino announced Monday that junior forward Daraje Arbasi has been awarded a scholarship for the remainder of the 2023-24 season. It's his first season with the Lobos. He transferred from Northern Alabama, where he played at 33 games, but only averaged almost 2 points and 3 rebounds per game. Head coach Richard Pitino says that Arbasi, I hope I pronounced that right.
It's Zagabosi, I think.
Arbasi. That's what I've got phonetically. You might be right there, Ed, but that's what I grabbed off North Alabama's website.
Okay. Well,
yeah, that's what I got phonetically. UNM didn't provide that, much like they don't provide injury reports. Pitino says that he is coachable and a great guy in the locker room. His future is bright, and we're fortunate to able to put him on scholarship this season. He's earned it, and we are all very proud of him, end quote. Also, the Lady Lobos lost to the Lady Rebels of UNLV 62-56 on Saturday behind a late 7-0 run. Nia Wilson led the Lobos with a career-high 25 points. She's been phenomenal as of lately, 17 of which came in the second half. However, UNM is 16-7 on the season, and they are 7-3 in the Mountain West Conference, which I think is still impressive. But we will get to another road test as we preview this Wyoming game. Wyoming is coming off a really bad performance in Vegas. I expected more out of them, and I thought I wrote it down here. I didn't. I think it was 62-48. They didn't shoot well. UNLV's athleticism got to them. But I think the most important question, and I will do a roundtable on this, is how do the Lobos bounce back, and how does Jalen House bounce back? Jake, I'm going to start with you because you brought that up. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, he's going to be super important to this game. This is the team. I don't know if you listened to the podcast when we previewed them the first time. This team turns the ball over. There's only 10 teams in the country that turn it over less than this team. And that's where the Lobos capitalized last time, which was, I think, a crazy, absurd amount off of turnovers. I believe it was like 28-0 in points off turnovers last game, which we ended up winning by 18. And then in that game, they had 23 turnovers at the pit. So it's going to be, important for Jalen House to get back into the groove, put that game behind him, because his defense is going to lead to and dictate a lot of our fast breaks tomorrow, which we're going to need, right? If this team turns it over the way that they normally do, I think we'll be okay. But it's going to all start on the defensive end, and we know how it is when he's, carrying his weight and he's on his game. The team feeds off him, and that's going to be important for tomorrow's game, especially with it being on the road. Because if you remember last game, they jumped out to an 18-point lead at half, and they played to a tie game in the second half. So that first half was treacherous for them, and then it turned into a decent game. So I just think Jalen House needs to bounce back. He's going to be super important, and we need to have control of the game tomorrow. So with him being the floor general for pretty much the team's aspect of it, I think he's super important tomorrow.
Ed, I'm going to go to you on that question.
I think what we've seen is when Jalen House is playing downhill. In last game against Wyoming, he had him and Mash together 7-25. They didn't shoot well, but Jalen House did have 5 steals. One of the things that Boise State did to negate the ball pressure was have Degenhart bring the ball up. There's been talk that Mason Walter at 6'9", he might bring the ball up and see if Wyoming adjusts to the ball pressure. you got to do something because he's a pest on defense. If he gets a steal here or there, he's one of the all-time steal leaders in NCAA history. So once he starts doing that, New Mexico plays downhill. And Jacob, you mentioned that New Mexico 28 points off of turnovers to 0. In Wyoming they turn it over 14 times a game. They turn it over quite a bit. So I think if House, it's important for him to get a good start. You asked how does he bounce back? We know he's streaky. He did not have a good streak against Boise State. He did not play well. Match didn't play well. It morphed into a half-court offensive game, and New Mexico's half-court offense wasn't very good against Boise State. So the key is trying to get some steals. Jalen House getting to the rim, drive and kick. For him, that's how he gets going. And Jacob was absolutely right. New Mexico plays better when he's playing downhill. They depend on that. They depend on the ball defense. Him being a pest, he cannot pick up cheap fouls. He picked up a cheap foul. And, you could say there was a 50-50 charge block. Tough call there. He picked up a block. That could have gone either way. So he's got to stay out of foul trouble. New Mexico needs him on the floor.
Rick, I defer that question to you.
Yeah, I think on a grander scheme, when I look at this, I'm just kind of seeing this as almost a must-win game for UNM when you look what lies ahead with UNLV at home and then at Nevada, at San Diego State, at Colorado. If they don't get off to a hot start here, I think it's going to be difficult. If you look at the other team, the Lobos that played twice this year in New Mexico State, it was a whole different story the second time we played them down there. And I think much of the same could happen in this game. Their guards on Wyoming, if Griffin and Codd, are going to challenge House again. And, one of them could get hot and, our guards have to be up to the test. Wyoming is going to switch it up and go into a 2-3 zone. Recently watching some of their game against Utah State, and the way Utah State was attacking them was you can't run pick and roll against zone, obviously. You need to move the ball side to side, get it to the middle, run cutters off of that guy in the middle. And what Utah State was doing was getting it to Osabar at the high post or low post and then running false 11 off of those cuts there. And I think the Lobos could also get some threes if they give them the zone early. So I would like to see House, take it to the rack. He did that last game. Unfortunately, they didn't fall. This game, I look for more of those to fall because, he's a pretty consistent player. And that was just an off game for him. So I look for a bounce back for sure.
Eric, your thoughts?
I think this game is going to be one on the defensive side for the Lobos. Obviously, we all know what they can do offensively and how many weapons that they have and options that they can go to. But defensively, we haven't really seen this team perform at a high level on the road yet. So Wyoming's not an easy place to play, and Wyoming's 8-1 at home this year. I mean, they call it the Dome of Doom. And in that border war game against CSU, they took it to them and had a historical comeback, right? They were down 11 points, forced overtime against Colorado State, down 11 points with 1 minute left. And on just kind of like the defensive scheme, this Wyoming team likes to shoot a lot of threes. They shoot about 38% from three, which ranks, I think it was like 16th or 17th in the country. And the games that they've struggled with this year, if you look back at that UNLV game where they struggled big time. They were 4 of 25 from three. And the last time they played the Lobos, I think they only made 4 or 5 threes. And Rick touched on a couple of their guys, right? Akel Cott was a D2 transfer, played in the RMAC last year. He just surpassed 2,000 career points. Big time scorer. He was 0 of 8 from 3-point land against UNLV. They got a couple other guys that can fill it up. Aside from Akel Cott, they rely on Sam Griffin. He's another high efficient shooter, 1 for 6 against UNLV. So I think the line kind of lays with the stats there. You got to stop this team from being able to shoot from the outside, defend the perimeter. I don't know if they have enough inside to battle down low with UNM's bigs. But we saw them keep pace with a really good San Diego State game earlier on in conference season. And they stayed in that game purely by knocking threes down 3 after 3. And I think they were up like 5 or 6 points at halftime against San Diego State, and San Diego State finally crawled back at the very end. But I think that this game is kind of trending towards that. If the Lobos can stop them on defense, which they have proved over and over again that they can do, I think the Lobos got this, but they got to be able to prove that they can do that on the road.
I will say this, I didn't play the game. I'm not an X's and O's guy, as I always say. Watching that, two things. That game against that Wyoming UNLV game on Saturday was pretty painful to watch. Wyoming couldn't get anything going. And I think UNLV kind of showed what potentially they could be, and we've seen glimpses of it, and it's not consistent this year with the Boone brothers. You have Keaton Thomas Jr., the guy that can dunk with the afro. I can't think of his name. That really narrows it down. Wally, right? Wally. Feel bad that I don't know that. Rodney Whaley. That's it. What a name. I love it. I think also, Jacob, Rick, you kind of touched on it, is the schedule. And it's at Wyoming for UNM. It's at Wyoming, UNLV, at Nevada, San Diego State, Colorado State, Air Force, at Boise. I'm going to that game. Fresno State, and then at Utah State. We might touch on bracketology later, and I'll ask Jacob later, because Jerry Palm of CBS Sports has UNM as an 11 seed in the first 4 in Dayton. And I'm not really, I always joke that I'm from Missouri. You got to show me. Well, they have shown me some very good stuff. Especially that stretch against San Diego State, Utah State, Air Force. Who else they beat in there? But that 4-game stretch, Nevada. I still, and I'm going to get a lot of flack for it. And if they do it, they're proving me wrong. I can totally see this team playing themselves out of the tournament. But I don't know. Like the net at 18 and the Ken Palm at 19, I don't know how you leave that team out. And I don't know how much they're going to necessarily. Oh, here's the box score for UNLV and Wyoming. Yeah, 62-48. I just don't know. I just see it very possible. But anyway, lost my train of thought there. Rick, I'm going to go to you on this. And I think you guys kind of touched on it, but the Lobos perimeter defense must show up against this team that likes to shoot the three. I think they touched on it, but just a little bit more in depth on that.
Yes, we've seen they're going to continue to shoot even against UNLV. They weren't making them, but that's their game. They have to get those shots up if they're going to stay in it. And, their post presence, I think Ed mentioned, isn't the strongest. And I think that's where the Lobos can take advantage. The Lobos need to, make sure they keep the big guys involved on if the defense isn't creating turnovers, then in the half court offense, they got to keep the big men involved. So on defense, they just got to be patient. If they're going to let a big man on the other side bring it up, the Lobos can't gamble too much. I saw Nelly in the last game taking a lot of fouls far away from the hoop, and House did have still a lot of steals, 4 steals, I think Ed mentioned. So I think they can do it. They're pretty locked in always on defense. We don't usually have to question that. I think Max Rice was just torching it the other night, a player of the week in the Mountain West Conference. So for the season, Wyoming is at a point differential of -1, I think. So they give up more than they usually put up. So only getting 48 against UNLV, it doesn't look like they're clicking right now. But like we've said a bunch of times now, at home they're a different animal, right? And they haven't lost in conference play. And the energy is going to be there for them. So UNM has to show up on defense, because we could see some inconsistent offense at times.
Ed, I'm going to go to you on this. You were talking that UNM should probably get more touches for Toppin and Nelly underneath, and probably preparing for another 1-3-1 defense. How do they beat this with Jeff Linder's squad?
Yeah, I think Rick mentioned that if they have a 2-3, you work the side, short corner. I'd like to see a little bit of high-low with Nelly and Toppin. Toppin's had a minimal effect the last couple of games. Didn't block a lot of shots. When he's rim wrecking and getting those dunks, it really helps to, I think, the Lobos' enthusiasm too, and they get steals, easy buckets. So I would like to see, if they're in the zone, I'd like to see, as I mentioned, a little bit of high-low and Toppin getting some more touches. We haven't seen him really get the ball. And Nelly against Boise State, they threw the double at him right away. He had dominated the game before. Well, he had 12 and 10, and he's been pretty effective on the left block with a drop step and a nice little left-handed touch off the glass. Boise State threw a double team right away on him, and that kind of threw New Mexico off a little bit. And so I think Toppin and Nelly need some more touches working against that zone. And you're going to see a zone until the way New Mexico executed against Boise State. They didn't execute very well in the second half. You're going to continue to see that until they beat it. They will. House and Mash didn't shoot well. We mentioned that the other night. They didn't shoot well. Against Wyoming, they didn't shoot well either. And Rick, you mentioned that a big first half lead, and then the second half is even. And I don't think we can say this enough. Wyoming undefeated at home. Remember, New Mexico has a bigger target. They're ranked. They're 25th in the country. You got beat here in the pit. So all those road games that you mentioned, we'll start tomorrow with Wyoming, at Nevada, San Diego State, Utah State. Those teams got, Wyoming didn't get run as bad as San Diego State and Nevada and Utah State. Wyoming lost. But tomorrow, New Mexico is circled on everybody's schedule. But I think if you see a zone, you've just got to execute, move the ball. Floor spacing is very important. Floor balance is very important. And when they were winning and even working against zones, you saw the ball moving with energy. So move the ball. We saw Mash take a couple of bad shots in the second half against Boise State, where in the past couple of games, he had been shooting on balance and the shooting mechanics look good. So stay fundamental, stay within your game. Let's hopefully Toppin and Nelly get some more post touches. I'd like to see some more of that.
Eric, do you have anything to say to that?
Yeah, no, I think Ed hit it right on the head with that, because it's got to start from the inside out, especially with facing a zone. And I don't know if you guys remember, but one of Wyoming's best players, Mason Walters, averages about 12, 13 points a game, was in early foul trouble in that last game. And he's one of their primary bigs. And he got into early foul trouble by guarding Toppin and Nelly down low. Nelly had, I think, finished with 6 free throws on the night. But when they are without him, then Wyoming has to go really small, and they're going to have to defend them. And that's just something that they don't have the luxury of having. They're not extremely deep. So with Mason Walters off the floor, that's kind of when the Lobos went and fed. That's something I would look for. Is he would play 24 minutes last game. I'd expect that he'd see closer to 35 a game, because he does have that kind of impact. But without him on the floor, you got to attack that. Just like Ed was saying, you got to keep attacking the bigs and look for some of the guys on the outside.
I think more in depth, Jacob, I'll go to you. I think this Wyoming team feels like it's kind of like hot and cold, much like what I've seen out of UNLV. But what do you know about them specifically? I know we've talked about the three, but you're the guru on this. What do you know about them specifically, and how can you see Wyoming winning this game?
Well, the first thing is going to be their 3-point shooting, and they're definitely a better team at home than they are on the road consistently. Their average points per game on the road compared to home is almost like an 8 or 9, 10-point difference. It's pretty significant. And I know that, this team, like we said, they love to give the ball up. They turn it over like crazy, but the turnovers do significantly go down at home as well. So this team really likes to play at home. They're not really a great road traveling team. They did stay in it decently against San Diego State in that one game, but if you look at all their other road games, they're pretty tough. The only team that they've beat or that they've lost to at home this year is Weber State, which is ironically a weird team for them to lose to, considering they've played some better teams at home than Weber State. But, these guys spread it out. They shoot threes. They're not very physical. But I also know that they are like a top 30 team at shooting free throws in the country. So they do make a lot of their free throws. So if they could figure out a way to get to the line, and we are giving them cheap fouls and they get into the bonus, that's going to be tough, because you're basically giving free points at that point. If they're playing tough defense from the outside and they're struggling to shoot threes, well, then you're doing what you need to do with them, right? You're making them pressure them. They don't really like to work outside in. The most of the points that the guys get down low, like Caden Powell's pretty much a non-factor on the offensive end. He's their center. He kind of just cleans things up and restarts the offense when he gets it. So for me, it's all about forcing the turnovers, limiting the threes. Another big thing I think tomorrow's going to bring to us is if they do fall down, Patino's going to have to know how to manage those timeouts and stop these runs. Like we can't let them hit, back to back to back threes because that kind of stuff kills you. You've got to really cut off these runs and call timeouts when the other team starts to implore their will, or you lose a little bit of the grip on the defensive end or on the game. You got to cut it off. So that's what I know about them. I think the other thing is Winsel's going to have a size advantage on whoever guards him. And it's kind of similar to what Boise State's lineup is. He can shoot, he can dribble, he could take the ball off the floor. He's 6'7", and so we have to decide who we're going to put on him. I would assume maybe it's going to be Mash, but they're going to have to follow him all over the floor and make sure that he doesn't get open for three. So another size disadvantage from the forward / because they kind of play three forwards, we play three guards. So another size advantage that they're going to have to figure out tomorrow as well.
We talked to Brandon. We talked to Wenzel in Vegas, and he was talking about playing table games. It was great. He seemed like he had a really good sense of humor, and he was messing with us, and I loved it. I think one of the things that I also wanted to get into, besides the Wyoming game, really a lot between the AP poll, probably bracketology, and then the athletic report that came out today. And Eric, I'll throw it to you on this, unless anybody has some final thoughts on Wyoming. I'll take that as a no.
I'll add one comment
Go
to that. We didn't really touch too much on Sam Griffin for Wyoming. Really dynamic point guard, their leading scorer, and pretty much the driver for their offensive rhythm. And I think that first game, they played UNM. House was just kind of all over him. That Pest is that name that we've given him, and that's kind of what he forced Griffin into. He still had 18 points, but UNM had 26. They forced 26 turnovers, generated 16 steals against Wyoming the last time. So just another key factor is just kind of that on-ball pressure that they like to do. Keep them off the three-point line, make it hard for them to get into their offense. But
I was going to ask you about this. UNM drops 6 spots. God, what a fantastic education I've got. 6 spots. They go from 19 to 25. Eric, I just wanted your thoughts. I'm kind of shocked that they are still ranked, given losing to Boise at home. But I think that shows also some national respect for them, which is obviously a good thing. I just wanted your thoughts on that.
well, I think the computers and the net specifically is really friendly to the Mountain West in total, and just kind of the strength of schedule that Boise State has faced this year, and kind of where they kind of sit now. Um, it's not a bad loss, and we talked about that in that Boise State recap. It wasn't a bad loss. It sucked that it was at home, and in this league, you can't lose at home because they're making it really challenging to win on the road. But yeah, I guess I wasn't really surprised that they dropped to 20 in the net, and I thought that they were probably going to be pushed out of the top 25, but to see them still at 25 just goes to show that I think the Mountain West and UNM is starting to garner some of that national respect, and the word's out. And man, it's now they got to win on the road. Now they got to carry that forward. Let's get that going. Hopefully that ranking doesn't get too far in their head.
I think some fans don't want them to be ranked because it's got more of a chip on their shoulder, and I've seen that on the old Twitter. Jacob, I'm going to you on this, and I'm going to reference this. Jerry Palm of CBS Sports had UNM as an 11 seed taking on Michigan State in the first 4. Their net is 18 and Ken Palm 19. You have an issue with this, and I wanted to hear your rant on this.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, put any other team next to that net and that Ken Palm rating that's in the ACC, in the Big 12, any of those conferences, and they're a shoe-in for the tournament. I mean, it's ridiculous. The fact that you would have a team that's in the top 20 in the net in Ken Palm as the first four out of the tournament, that kind of shows me that the country is still divided on what they think of New Mexico. Because obviously the Associated Press thinks that they're good enough to stay in the top 25 after a loss to Boise State. They've only lost 4 games the entire season. I wouldn't say they have a treacherous loss yet. I mean, UNLV is a tough team. I mean, they're going to give people hard times from night to night basis. They lost to Colorado State. They lost to Boise State. I mean, these are respectable losses, and for you to have them as the first team out playing somebody like Michigan State, who almost has double-digit losses, who's inconsistent from night to night basis. I mean, these guys just got off of a 5-game streak of wins where they won by 20 points almost every game. I mean, how could you keep a team like that out of the tournament? Everybody's talking about them having potentially one of the best lineups of guards since Rhode Island years back, and you come out and say that they're they're on the bubble like that and they're still in the top 25. I just can't remember the last time that somebody's been in the top 25 and they're correlated with one of the first teams or one of the last 4 teams in the tournament. That to me makes 0 sense, and I think it's mind-boggling to me. But that's just my opinion.
I think Joe Lenardi will have his bracket out tomorrow. I think he does it twice a week. I think it's Tuesday and Friday. I might be making that up.
Well,
Mike, go ahead, Eric.
No, I just wanted to say one more thing.
All right, Jacob.
I mean, this team was an 8 seed last week. You lose to Boise, who's almost almost in first place in the Mountain West Conference, and they're talking about how good this conference is, and you drop them from an 8 seed to an 11 seed in the first 4 in. That's ridiculous to me. I think that's absolutely asinine. That's the way I look at it.
Mike DeCourcy of Fox Sports had his bracket out today, and I'm going to go back to you on this one again, Jacob. He has New Mexico in the West against a team that I love to watch play, and it's Nebraska. So he's got an 8-9 matchup, and if they would win, they would potentially play North Carolina. Obviously, that's not set in stone, but you flip from what Jerry Palm is projected to Mike DeCourcy having them as an 8 seed.
Yeah.
I find that fascinating, and I know we've talked about it. Lenardi has just not disrespect to UNM, but probably disrespect to the Mountain West Conference because they don't play on ESPN. It's a Fox Sports, a CBS thing. But when you see that 8-9 matchup of Mike DeCourcy on Fox Sports, what do you think of that?
I think that's more on par of where they're at right now, right? I mean, that's where I would have them, 8 or 9 seed right now. You lose tomorrow, that's a different story. That's a quad 3 loss. Now it bumps your net down. You start showing that you're not winning on the road consistently. That will be 2 and 3 on the road so far in Mountain West Conference. That's a different story. But yeah, that's more respectable. And even Lenardi's given him more respect than what Palm's giving him. And he didn't even have him in for quite some time. And he's changed his perspective a little bit. So I think that's right on line. That'd be kind of a cool game, right? UNM versus Alec in Nebraska. That would be interesting. And they have some talent. But yeah, I'm more on line with them being an 8 or 9 seed than having to play themselves into the tournament in the top 25. Get out of here with that.
I find if what Fred Hoiberg has done at Nebraska, and I know Nebraska football kind of for the last decade, football wise, has not been up to snuff. And with Tom, legendary Tom Osborne, but I think Tim Miles got them to the tournament in 2014. That was the last time they were there. I was looking it up. But this team's fun to watch. Keisai, I don't want it. Taminga is the guard. He's Japanese. He's fantastic. That center Mast, he's great. They've got a couple of shooters, but they're fun to watch. That just sparked my interest. I know that's nothing set in stone. Lenardi's last had St. John's and UNM in an 8-9 matchup in some reason. I got to go back and look at it, but 8-9 matchup in the Midwest. And if New Mexico were to win that game, they would play Purdue unless Purdue has to play Fairleigh Dickinson again. Does anybody have any thoughts on the bracketology? I just wanted to open that up because I just saw that today from Jerry Palm, and even I, me, Mr. Hater here, I was like, really? And there was this, aura for years that, obviously the Mountain West couldn't win a game. I remember when Rodney Terry got them to Fresno State, they won the tournament and nobody else got in. They were the only bid, I think in 2014 or 2015. And it's come a long way over the last 10 years, but that I go back to 2013 when they lost to Harvard as a 3 seed and they get in, they kind of basically do the same thing under Coach Neal and Craig Neal in 2013, 2014. And the committee gives them a 7 seed and Stanford a 10 seed, and Stanford, escapes. And I think got to the Sweet 16 that year. But I think there's a massive level of disrespect towards the Mountain West. And I will say that. And I've always thought we've got this conference has gotten a lot of national love this year. And yet I still think there are, Jacob, you mentioned it, there's half of the country that I'm sure would say put them against the Big 12 and put them against maybe some teams from the ACC, and it wouldn't be close. But I know it's a completely different team, but I go back to San Diego State last year. I mean, they had to play Furman. They beat Alabama. They got a very good Creighton team in the Elite Eight, and it's not your fault. Who you draw. I'm sure somebody will take away recognition by beating FAU, but that's my rant. And
Well,
I always go back to 2014 when they got the 7 seed. But go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, wasn't it Saturday that on ESPN Game Day, Seth Greenberg made a comment about the Mountain West, how they were going to he thought deserved to get 5 bids in and put them right up there against the Pac-12 and the ACC, it possibly being a better overall conference or having more bids than both of them or something like that. I'm not misstating that, right? Because I think I saw that with you.
Yeah, no, it was who's the girl on the show? She played college basketball. She brought it up, and then they deferred to Seth Greenberg, and he kind of defended it. So I mean, yeah, there's that national attention, and I understand that.
Andrea Carter, is that who you were referring to?
That's who I'm referring to. Yeah, she mentioned them, and it was one of the questions when they spin the board. I don't religiously pay attention to the college game day basketball. I watch the football version every Saturday. It's like going to church for me. But another thing I wanted to bring up, and it was kind of big news around Albuquerque today, was Brian Hamilton of The Athletic. And this article came out today, 6 days on the bubble with America's most eclectic team. And he was here for San Diego State and Utah State and spent some time with Richard Pitino and talking to the guys, and it's a pretty cool breakdown. But Rick, you wanted to touch on it and just your thoughts about the Brian Hamilton story in The Athletic today.
Yeah, I just thought it was really well written. Everyone should check it out. But basically, it starts with a quick player profile of 4 of our big dogs in House, Dent, Mash, and Nelly, Junior Joseph, and just a little short biography on them. And the one takeaway I had from all of their stories is they have a connection with Coach, and they feel a loyalty towards him, and he's built up this trust with these players. And where other coaches weren't giving Donovan Dent the attention, obviously, that he deserved in high school. And Dent just had a quote in there about, now that he's excelling, he's not going to leave the coaches that believed in him. And it was just great to see the behind the scenes, some of the quotes from Patino in the locker room, dropping F-bombs, and just I think the confidence that he's pouring into these guys. I said it last podcast, but Patino deserves a lot of credit, especially in this NIL era, to keep guys around. And to build this kind of camaraderie that it seems they have. It seems really great because I think a lot of coaches, like we're seeing, are struggling to keep players around. And every year, you don't only have to recruit freshmen, you have to keep your own guys in and make sure they're happy every year. So it's a changing scene, and I think that's why we're seeing a lot of older coaches step down in college and probably moving forward in football and also here in basketball. I wouldn't expect it, but just a really well written article and really great insight by Brian Hamilton.
Eric, I wanted your thoughts on it.
Yeah, no, I'd have to agree with Rick on that. It was really well written. Um, Very cool story to see that written about the UNM program in general. They don't get a whole lot of national notoriety. I know that, and I just spaced his name, the writer from Sports Illustrated when he was here last year. I
Kevin
forgot
Sweeney,
which game. Yeah, Kevin Sweeney. I forgot what
Boise
game he
State.
came to. But yeah, he raved about just the overall atmosphere at the pit, and a lot of people hear about it but don't really get the chance to experience it. And it's a huge leg up for Patino and the program. And in every post game press conference, he always references the crowd and him being blessed. And then even in that article, they touched on him kind of holding back tears with just being able to experience that. And these guys are going to take that back as far as the team goes, being able to remember that for a lifetime and being able to experience 15,000 fans, because that's got to be a top 10 in the entire country, right? Like on total average per fan base every game. Um, but yeah, just a really cool article. I like reading stuff like that. I wish it would come out more, especially in a national profile, because I think Patino's kind of getting it back to that level, right? I don't think we've experienced this type of attention as a fan base in UNM and even the Mountain West. I can kind of throw into that conversation with being in conversations, being talked about on ESPN for a while there. It was just kind of like this other West Coast conference that was trying to be the Pac-12, but now they've surpassed the Pac-12, and it's just cool. And I'm really glad that we kind of started this when we did, and we're getting to experience it firsthand and really break down the league on a game by game basis, and being able to attend Mountain West Media Days and how big that was. And man, I'm excited for where this conference and this program's headed. Man, it's very exciting.
You know, I talk about it all the time. So here you go, Ed. With you just reflecting that and wishing where I was probably 13, 14 years ago. I thought this conference was fun to watch 13, 14 years ago. And I don't know if you have maybe, I'd say Jaden Ledee, Donovan Dent. I think Tyson Dagenhart's really good. But when 13, 14 years ago, when it was Jimmer Fredette and Kawhi Leonard and Utah was good and UNM was UNM, and I thought Darrington Hobson was a phenomenal player that year that he won Mountain West Conference Player of the Year. It was kind of sad to me to see it lose its luster there for, a strong 6-7 years, and then Steve Fisher and his resurgence and Brian Dutcher. It's pretty cool. Ed, I haven't gone to you in a while, so just your thoughts on anything.
Well, I think when you mentioned the conference, one thing that helps is having San Diego State play for a national championship last year. That definitely, the only other team to play for a national championship in the Mountain West was Utah against Kentucky. So when you have, and then all of a sudden people start getting eyes on San Diego State. Wow, they played a great tournament. They matched up, with UConn for the championship. So I think that got people's eyes a little bit more open on the Mountain West. The people that don't know the conference. And you mentioned the disrespect towards New Mexico, Jacob. That's been going on for a long time. They got that 3 seed. They lose to Harvard. They get the 7. They lose to Stanford. Back in the day, way back in the day, they lose to Cal State Fullerton. They lose to Louisville. And Spider Smith and Kenny and David Gibson were here, and Clayton Shields. So I don't know that they've ever, people kind of dismiss them, even if they're playing well. People feel still some that that follow the NCAA and the tournaments and the bracketology feel that they don't deserve that respect because somewhere along the line they'll cave in, they think. So I think the Utah State, you mentioned some great players in the conference. Great Osbar, he's a great player too. So there is some great players in the conference, and I think having San Diego State go to the national championship, even though they lost. It made people a little bit more aware of the conference, and it's not so much disrespectful anymore and dismissive. Although New Mexico still has to earn their NCAA respect if they get a seed. And Jacob, I think you're right, or 8 or 9 right now is about right. But we keep saying this, man. We said this. There's divots in the road here. There is. It's a tough schedule. That's why tomorrow's game is a must win. You have to win that game because you got to go to Utah State, Boise State, San Diego State. So they've got some real tough games ahead. But that's just my thoughts overall on the conference. I think it's much better. This year is one of the best years we've seen in a long time.
No, I truly believe that. Eric, were you going to say something? Oh no, I think you were scratching your head. Never mind. Yeah, I don't want to keep repeating ourselves. But Jeff Grammer wrote about it, and I'm not trying to bounce off subjects, but he compared it to an 18 holes of golf, and they are at the turn now. And I didn't realize this. They're one of the last teams to have kind of this longer stretch, which I'm sure did them good. I'm sure they didn't want to come off a loss like that. That could motivate them. And Rick, I know we're kind of bouncing back off subjects. Again, I know all of you guys played, or 3 of you played, but coming off a loss like that in a long time, it goes for any sport. But when you're sitting there sulking in that loss, and then you've got to go on the road, and it's a tough test. I mean, what would be going through your mind?
But I think big picture, they've really been playing well, though, the last stretch of games. So I think their confidence should still be high, even though they didn't play too hot in the last game. And going into Wyoming, I think they need to just feed off the energy of the crowd and the people cursing at House and the people yelling at them. They got to just use it as fuel because they're going to hear it there. It's not going to be the friendly confines of the pit. And it's going to be quite a task, and I think we just got to the Lobos got to stay out of foul trouble and communicate well because it's going to be loud. They're going to have to show greater discipline on defense than they did in the last game because Wyoming's going to walk the shot clock down just like we saw against Boise, and we can't give up on those head fakes or those last second shots and get lazy there. So. As a player, I think they're going to come out hungry. The hungrier dog runs faster. Both teams coming off a loss, though. It's going to be a competitive game, and I think it's going to come down to how Wyoming shoots the ball. So if the Lobos come out with energy on defense, and I think they could build a sizable lead by half and ride it from there. But it's going to take a full team effort, as we've seen, because House can have an off night, and someone else will have to step up. So. It's going to be a challenge. Looking forward to it.
What prediction do you have for the game?
I'm guessing the spread is probably going to be lower than it has. I'm thinking maybe 5 or 6. I'll let Jacob tell us the official number.
It's 10.
It's 10. Oh my, that's really a lot. I believe. I wouldn't be totally surprised if Wyoming wins. To be honest, I think the Lobos can hit dry spells, and Wyoming hasn't lost at home. But I'll pick the Lobos here to win by 5 points.
Gotcha. Eric, your thoughts?
I think this game's going to come down to, again, like I mentioned at the beginning, the defensive side and overall toughness. In that article, Patino was quoted as saying, like, man, we're going to bang bodies and we got to be the more physical team. And that's what you got to do on the road. And yeah, they are going to come out hungrier. I think that loss was not a terrible loss in a lot of ways, but I think it gives them a chance to reset and give them something to go after, right? They can't afford to lose 2 games, but I don't think they're approaching it in a way to, we're not going to lose again, but it's really just like, here's a chance for us to kind of keep building on what we want the end goal to be. And the end goal is to make it to the NCAA tournament. So they got to prove to themselves that they can go out and play really well on the road. I think Mash and House both need to go find it and prove to themselves that they're capable of playing well on the road and knocking down shots, right? I think with that Boise State game, they just kind of ran into a combination of a few bad fortunes with Rice kind of doing what he did, and then having both Mash and House not shoot it well from the outside. Really having Donovan Dent, I thought that they were kind of just out of sorts, but I think Patino knows the game well enough, and I think this team's mature enough now to make the appropriate adjustments, especially facing a possible zone, that 1-3-1 that kind of threw them for a loop a little bit, but just kind of resaddling the horse, resetting a few things, really picking up the defensive intensity and being the tougher team. So I'm going to take the Lobos in this one. Don't know if they cover 10, but I'll take them money line.
It's a rather high money line. You'd have to bet $526 to win $100. Jacob, I'm going to go to you, and then I'll give my thoughts, and I'll let Ed finish that out. But Jacob, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm struggling with this one. I feel like it could be a game that they struggle with. They haven't really beat or they haven't beat anybody significant on the road yet in the Mountain West. They have had good showings against, the bottom dwellers of the Mountain West Conference, but when we look at Wyoming and you see 12-10, it can be indicative of to how they started the season. I mean, they are 5-4, and if the Lobos lose this game, they'd also have 4 losses in the Mountain West, right? So if you really look at this, they're only 1 game behind UNM in the standings. So this team's a little tougher than a lot of people think. And as I said, even when we were playing really well back then, this was always a tough place to play. So for me, I don't think they win by double digits. In fact, I think this game's going to come down to the very bitter end, and I think that they should be able to pull it off. But I think 10 is outrageous for a spread. I would have, I figured that was coming because of what the other spreads were and what we've seen them lay on the road, which means they're still giving them credit. But now is when it starts. This starts the main part of UNM's season starts tomorrow. And so they need to make sure they come out, but even just a win of 2 or 3 or 4 does the job. So I'll take Wyoming with the points in this game, but the UNM to win outright.
I'll give my thoughts, and I'll go to Ed to finish this up. Yeah, I think 10 is a lot. And Jacob, when I asked you that earlier, you had said 11.5, and I thought that was a lot too. I think this would be really bad. This loss would put UNM in a really, not a bad spot, but a tougher spot. I think they can win. I think we're all in agreement here. I don't think they can cover. I think if both teams get hot, that over under 155.5. I mean, the Lobos have kind of been an over machine, and I don't expect Wyoming, especially in Laradice, I love that, is to shoot and play like they did the other night against UNLV, where it was really, really bad. And that's what I wanted to bring up earlier. They're a pretty good shooting team. They went 4 of 25 from the 3. They only hit 1 in the second half. They missed 8 of them, 1 of 9. They shot 34% from the field against UNLV, and 8 of 12. What a weird free throw game. UNLV only made 4 free throws out of 10. 8 of 12. I mean, the hat's back up there behind me somewhere. Make your free throws. But yeah, I like UNM to win. Obviously, I'm not taking them money line at that high of that much juice. But Ed, I defer to you and your thoughts and what you kind of see maybe happening tomorrow night.
I think New Mexico wins. I think New Mexico wins by 5 or 7 points. But I think one of the things you talked about, Eric, was road toughness, mental toughness, winning on the road when calls don't go against you. And we mentioned how Mike Winters, I would hate to keep bringing that up, mentioned back in the day, it's a tough place to play. It really is. And so I think pace and speed, pace is important for UNM. Can they get some steals? Can they get out and transition, feel good about their offense, and can they play downhill? Remember, they scored 99 against Utah State, should have had 100, 95 against San Jose State. They were scoring a lot of points, and then against Boise State, they kind of were stymied. So how do they get back on track? What's their formula for winning? We've seen what it is. Can they do that on the road? And Wyoming, on the other hand, Jacob, you make a great point. If New Mexico loses, it's the margin between these two teams right now isn't that big. This game looms large for Wyoming. They're playing at home, and they've got to have a win too. So New Mexico has been circled by every team that they're playing, especially now that they're ranked. And coming in here, they beat Wyoming the first time here at the Pit. Wyoming wants revenge, but I think New Mexico takes care of business and they win by 5 to 7 points.
Yeah, I think we're kind of all. I mean, I think Rick picked Wyoming, but I think we're all kind of in agreement there. Eric, before we get out of here, I'm just throwing it over to you about the ticket giveaway with Affordable Solar.
Yeah, Affordable Solar, local solar company that we've partnered with, has offered a promo deal in conjunction with us. Right now, if I'll go ahead and include the link down in the comments of the YouTube video, as well as some links on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, to go to their website and fill out one of their forms. Include the hashtag #ThePitPress in the comment section. Go ahead and get signed up for just a consultation. I think you just need to share some information with them about saving your overall energy cost, transitioning over to solar, how easy it could be for you, and really just kind of get signed up to learn more. And what that's going to do is give you 2 free tickets to an upcoming Lobo game. I think we kind of deem that game the Colorado State home game here. So you got a limited time to get that in. But we'll go ahead and share the links below and share on our social media. So enter the contest, get to the game for free. No better deal than that.
There's no hotter ticket in Albuquerque right now. Not even traveling Broadway. The Colorado State game, that was terrible. I poked Joy. Colorado State game is February 21st, which is a Wednesday night. And of course, it's an 8:00 game. You know what I wanted to say that I'm very happy about is this game on Tuesday night. If you're listening, it's tonight, 6:30 on the Mountain West Network. Bless it. And then Saturday at 6:00 at home against UNLV. So none of the, even on Saturday night, that 8:30 time, I'm like, man, I'd rather be in bed. And I saw some stupid Washington Post article that said the new thing for 20-year-olds is to be in bed by 9 a.m. Ed, there you go.
Wow.
Yeah, that blew my mind. And then
AM?
excuse me, PM, 9 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I messed that up. Sorry. But yeah, 9 p.m. I guess you're staying up all night. No, it was like to go to bed early and wake up early and be productive. I don't. That's weird to me. Thank you for calling me out on that, Rick. And then loud budgeting I saw today. Anyway, hey, check us out on Twitter. It's at the Pit Press NM. Excuse me, the artist formerly known as Twitter. It's X. Check us out on Instagram at the Pit Press NM. Give our website a visit. You can find all our shows there. And I know at some point we'll get more written content up on there at thepitpressnm.com. On behalf of all of us here, Rick Thompson, Jacob Neff, Eric Malton, and Ed Nunez, my name is Ryan Tamori. Thanks for listening to the Pit Press podcast, and we will see you post Wyoming, and then we'll get you ready for UNLV, and then we'll see you there. And to quote one of my favorite movies of all time, Rick, you'll get this. See you at the party, Rick. We'll see you at the party.